Well, JJ, I'd like to congratulate you on being selected our 2019 Railroader of the Year. This award goes back to 1964, and at CN, of course, you have some predecessors, Paul Tellier and Hunter Harrison among them. So, congratulations.
Thank you, Bill, and extremely proud on behalf of the CN team. I know there's a lot there because I remember when Paul Tellier got the Railroaders of the Year back after what was my early days at CN at that time, and I was quite impressed that somebody like Paul, who came from outside the industry, could be the Railroader of the Year. And then I was even more proud when Hunter, shortly after we had the merger of 1998-99, also became the Railroader of the Year, which was a huge endorsement at that time of the transformation we were going through. So, and we also going through a transformation. We had a challenge last winter, and we're coming back on our feet. But also we are on the verge of starting a transformation of what is railroading at CN, what is precision scheduled railroading. So for all of these good reasons, but especially on behalf of all the 25,000 employees at CN, I'm extremely proud that I was selected Railroader of the Year for 2019.
So I'd like to talk about your background a bit, your family. Where are you from? You are Canadian?
Yeah, I'm a Canadian. I'm from a small town called Drummondville. Back in the days, it was a big industrial town with a few large companies, and my father was a blue-collar worker. He was a union man too. He was very involved in a union at that time. And it's a town which has some railroad history. It's on the CN main line between Montreal and Quebec City, and that's where I was born and raised for the first 16 years of my life.
Mm-hmm. Now you have a background in chemistry, applied chemistry.
That's right. So back as a kid, I was encouraged obviously to go to school and do different things, and it was a toss-up between being an engineer or an architect. Then went toward the science side of engineering, but the love was really about chemistry. So I did a degree in applied chemistry, which got me into the world of chemical industry. I worked for a chemical company, two of them, and one of them for 2 years, one for 16 years. So my background is definitely heavy manufacturing, product which tend to be hazardous product where safety is a high concern. Worked in a factory for 2 years, and then after that, customer service, sales, marketing, research and development, business development, some R&D, starting up product line and businesses, and toward the end, supply chain. So I was doing the purchasing of raw material, the logistics of the outbound finished product, and all of the planning of how much we make and how much we sell and who we sell it. And we were using all modes, so water, truck, rail, and also a lot of product exchange. And this is where I got to know during these last 2 years the railroad industry. Got to know Conrail quite a bit, CN, and then some, and also up to a point the Illinois Central, because the company I worked at had plant in Eastern Canada, but also we had plant in Louisiana. It was a large chemical company called Imperial Chemicals Industries, ICI. In Canada was known as CIL, and in US, namely in Geismar, they were involved, for example, in Rubicon in Geismar, Louisiana. So then I joined CN because of Paul Tellier. When you join a company, you always look as who's their leader, and you look at where are they going. And I was very impressed with Paul Tellier's leadership at that time, with who he is and what he was going to do with CN. So I was a believer into that, and also a believer of the strategy that CN had at that time. That the view of many is privatizing a crown corporation overnight to be 100% private was very risky. At the same time, it was very, very appealing. So what some view as a risk, I view as a huge potential upside. So these two reasons is what brought me to this, being a chemist in the chemical industry, to wanted to become a railroader at the time when the company was going to go go from fully governmental to private, and under the leadership of somebody who have a very strong vision for the company at that time, I'll tell you.
So you worked in the latter part of your time at the chemical company. Then you worked quite a bit with the railroads, as you said, Conrail, Illinois Central, CN.
So because our customers were, we were making product which were basically being traded between Canada and the U.S. north-south. So we weren't shipping very much west. We were shipping mostly south. So, along the East Coast by water, truck within a radius around these plants, and then rail for long distance all the way, from basically plants in Eastern Canada all the way down to Louisiana, Florida, and anything in between, right? So using all the modes. So started to learn about the rail network, the rail map. The complexity at that time of doing business with the rail industry was quite, coming from a chemical industry was quite amazed how complicated it was from a customer's point of view, and I like the word customers, not shippers, customer's point of view to use the railroad. And when I joined the railroad, there's a lot of things that we did under Hunter Harrison and Jim Foote that really was to simplify transaction. So we eliminated rebate. We eliminated mileage payment on rail cars. We went to per car rate. We went to the most simplistic unit so that when you buy the services, you understand your cost without necessarily having to go through a series of add-on and deduct, which as a customer of the railroad back in the days was one of our frustration is, okay, you have all these different things, so what is really is my cost? So one of my learning as a customer is how do I do the railroading side from inside CN in a way that we would be a better provider to what my frustration were when I was a customer. And under Hunter and Jim, we did a lot of those things. And today, it's common to have everything on a per car basis, to have no mileage payment for private equipment. It's also common to have, in some cases, Rule 11 rate. And then all these things are failed, and also we've also converted the currency. There used to be a sort of a kind of a currency between there was neither Canadian funds or U.S. funds. We also eliminated that, so now you always do business in a real currency as opposed to the currency surcharge, which was adjusted every 2 weeks, right? So you kind of you were anyway you. Why bother with currency surcharge when you can just look up U.S. exchange rate and make that simple, right?
So then dealing with being a railroad customer at the time was rather intense. Would you say it was complicated? You mentioned currency surcharges and other financial things that made things complicated.
Even back in those days, I'm going back, being with CN now for 23 years. Even back in those days, it was so much easier to do business with a barge company or an ocean-going company or a trucking company than it was doing business with a railroad, especially if it was going to be interline movement, which was the case for any manufacturers, like in the chemical industry. Most of what you do is interline. So really all of these things were brought in, and so okay, how do we grow a business in a way that we make it more conducive to do business with the railroads, CN in particular, and then over time, we can maintain shares and grow shares and be profitable, and also present ourselves in a way that you don't need to be a railroad guru to understand railroad and do business with them.
So getting back to your coming to CN, who made the first move? Was it you approached CN, or they approached you, or how did that go?
It was a combination of both, Bill. I would say it's somewhat CN, but the time was ripe. So at ICI Canada, which was the Canadian sub was ICI Canada at that time, we were going through some major restructuring, and a lot of the business had been sold. And then actually the management team and my mentor of that time, Mr. Torgerson, we actually made an attempt to buy our business unit. We actually made an offer to do a management leverage buyout of our business unit, to take it private and run it ourselves, and because we believe in what we had. But the management leverage buyout did not proceed, and rather than stay at ICI, this is when I was looking for to go and do something else somewhere else. And at the same time, CN was being ready to be privatized This was like CN was privatized in November 1995. As I was in a field where the shareholders was losing interest, and then as a management group, we tried to become shareholders and could not get it done. Then this is where I was looking for a company who had a vision of growing and getting things done as opposed to withdraw from the marketplace. So, CN at that time was looking for talent from outside. You got to remember, today people look at precision scheduled railroading, the way it's applied on any of the railroad, how difficult that is. You could imagine how difficult it was to apply, to go from a crown corporation is losing money to becoming 100% privatized overnight and be totally on your own. So you went from 33,000 people to 22,000 people, 100% be privatized, and now cutting the link between the company and the government, and then making a go of that. So that was also obviously very challenging, and there was a lot of people at that time kind of sort of naysayer believers as to, will this work or not? And my view was that the potential was huge, and even though the risk was significant, that this was most likely to work, and this was a place to be. And when 2 years later, when Hunter came in through the merger, which was another huge success and learning in my career, is when you buy a company, you should look at the talent in those companies as much as the asset of this company. We tend to look at company when you buy them as, the map, the territory, the equipment they have, but also, you should always look very closely at the talent that they have. In the case of Illinois Central, all the talent stayed with CN. And that was another part of a fairly major transformation that was also quite difficult at that time. In hindsight, today people look at that as, scheduled railroading can be done. But at that time, there was a lot of naysayers also that being the first one that was going to be scheduled, this was probably going to be, a lot of people would say this was going to fail, right?
So CN was really the first to do precision scheduled railroading. It had been applied on a smaller scale at Illinois Central, but now it's a much larger network. It crosses a border.
So it was applied on the Illinois Central, which was a smaller network, but it was applied on Illinois Central. As I said earlier, Bill, when we did the merger, there was a 1 year between the time the merger was announced to the time it was approved by the STB. And during that 1 year, we did a lot of outreach with our U.S. customers. So we were running on the IC business car and business train. I remember a trip specifically between Jackson and New Orleans, where we stopped in every station, and customers were getting on the board. And we were making the presentation about the merger and explaining them the benefit of the merger. And then this is also, in between these meetings, I was with some of the executive of IC, and then we were learning about each other's culture. So I'm coming from Canada, they're coming from the South. They understand Hunter, they know how he works. I understand partly how CN works because I've been at CN for 2 years. And in between meeting where we're explaining the merger to customer, we were explaining each other's how we were doing business. And this is where I got to learn about a bit about Hunter model, and also about what sort of scheduled railroading was on the IC, and how they went through the phase of some challenge also on the operation side, on the customer side. And history has repeated itself a number of times, but I think the first time history was set was on the IC, not on the CN, because even those customers back in the days, I think that they remember that early days, this was a little bit challenging for them as well at the time.
Hunter, man, it was passed into history, and I guess you can call him a legend. But I did want to ask, what was it like working with him? There's the stories, there's the exaggerated stories, there's the tall tales and true tales. What was he like, really, from your perspective?
Yeah. It depends on the day. It depends on the day. So I think you're right. There's stories, they tell, everything gets bigger in life, especially when you 5, 10 years, 15 years later, you kind of, stories are repeated, and they're repeated with more humor or more sadness. But, it was a time of learning the basic of railroading. And it was a time also of, the same learning that we had with Paul Tellier, or that we had with Jim Ford, about leadership. How do you get a lot of people to do things that needs to get done? that may or may not be understood, that may or may not be easy, but it needs to get understood and needs to get done. Otherwise, we're gonna start slipping and go backward. And so all these different stories, I think about eventually, it's all about leadership and about result. Friday is that creating the sense of purpose, the sense of urgency, and then in doubt, make some decision and move forward. You know, don't get stuck in bureaucracy. When you look at large companies, like all the big railroad in North America, becomes a point where because you're large and you have resource and you have time, or you think you have time, you start to probably waste the most valuable part, which is time. You use more time than what you should, and you hesitate for longer than what you should, and then you could do that for a period of time just because you're big and you can survive these things. But in the long run, these are some of the huge mistakes. So coming back from where some of the where we are, what we learned the last 20 years, to what we had to do last spring is to get back to basic. Is don't procrastinate. Get the bureaucracy out of the system. You know the business enough, and you know what you need to do. Just make decision, move with sense of urgency, and get people to act as one. When everybody has his own style, how you do that? Hunter has his own style. Mr. Tellier has his own style. Jim has his own style. I have my own style. But I believe that any large team, and railroads are a large team, if they don't play as one, it doesn't matter how much asset they have or how much capital they have, they won't be successful, or they won't be as successful. So you have to get to the point where there's a common cause, there's a common focus. And then for those who are not on side, or don't want to be on side, you have to get them off the train and replace them by those who want to be on side. And those who are on side and on the train, but they don't quite know how to do it, you have to teach them how to do it. And when it's not quite clear where we should go, you should at least make sure that you give them a common direction, and and not leave people into sort of making each one decision of what is required to be done here today.
So what is J.J. Ruest's style? How would you describe it?
Yeah, my style is to make decision, to analyze, but not more than it has to. I ask my people, for example, when we have meetings, to really have a meeting, whatever document you're going to bring a smaller document. If you can't put it in less word, it's maybe because you don't quite know what to say, or what is it that you want to express. So less is better than more. Leave time for discussion, and when the discussion's over, we make a decision. We don't leave the room says we're gonna analyze this again. Most meetings have to end up with a decision as to what is it we're going to talk about today, or an action plan that will quickly lead to a decision. And as we go from decision to decision, then we can move on to the next thing, right? Otherwise, we're just going to accumulate a bunch of issues that eventually will become, extremely heavyweight, like what we ended up having last winter. So, make a decision, go with what you know, be a student of the marketplace, learn from others, learn from leaders. I do a lot of listening, but I don't listen because I'm not decisive. I listen because before I make up my mind, I want to hear those who have something to say. But when the discussion is over, we decide we move forward, and that's it. When the decision is made, there has to be somebody who's in charge of that outcome. So there may be a team of people, but there's only one leader. For each project or each decision, there has to be one person accountable to get it done.
You've been in the role now for a relatively short time. Of course, you've been with the company a long time. What was it like, just sort of being thrust into the role?
I'm discovering new stakeholders, right? So coming in from the commercial world, there's all the stuff that you understand on some of the regulatory space, customer side, and logistics partner, and understanding supply chain within North America and way outside North America. Going back to the things I'm discovering is new stakeholders, meaning a lot of involvement from regulators and politicians. A lot more involvement and engagement when it comes to safety. How we use technology is something that I really discover and really enjoy doing that. Canada right now, we're the fourth largest market cap in Canada, so we're a very large. We're $80 billion plus There's three Canadian banks ahead of us, so we matter to the Canadian economy. And when the Canadian economy has issues, sometimes we get dragged in right in the middle, whether it's issues with lumber trade into the United States, or question about NAFTA, or question about crude by rail because of issues with pipeline, and what's happening in the world of grains. All of these things, we are a citizen, a corporate citizen that matters because we're sort of either central or very part of these issues. And that's a part that I'm discovering and I'm enjoying, but at the same time, we don't always have the solution right away that people are looking for, right? We're not always on standby with all the goods and services that we can step in and fix something that maybe should have been fixed years ago. But I just want to thank all of our employees at CN for the constant support, especially last spring and last winter. We had a really, really tough winter. We had to make it through, and we did it ourselves, and we came out of it, and we came out again as a team, and we did it ourselves. And the message to the team is, hang in there. We're investing, and we are giving ourselves the tool to be successful, and we will be successful. And that's the commitment that we have to our investors, our customers, government regulators, shareholders, or even more important, to ourselves. And I think we've earned the right to be successful. Thank you for everybody's support to keep on going down that path. And thank you for Railway Age to give this recognition to CN and to myself. And I want to thank my mentor from the past, Paul Tellier, Hunter Harrison, Jim Foote, Claude Mongeau, and Norm Turgerson for my days back at the chemical industry and my father for all the learning that they gave us over the years. And now it's up to me to give that same learning and coaching back to the people who work for me and around me.